Hello, beautiful, and welcome back to Mother to Muse, the podcast where women remember who they are. I'm your host, Aviance, and today's episode is a little different because today you're going to meet someone who has taught me more about courage, perspective, and hope than he probably realizes. And that person is my son. As parents, we often think we're the teachers, but if we're paying attention, our children teach us too. Today's conversation isn't just about resilience. It's about what happens when we choose to keep dreaming, even after life doesn't go according to plan. So let's jump in. One of the things I've noticed about my son is how naturally he walks into the room. He doesn't spend a lot of time wondering if he belongs. He simply believes he does. And honestly, I think that's something many of us lose as adults. Somewhere between childhood and responsibility, we begin questioning ourselves. We hesitate. We overthink. We shrink. But children often remind us what confidence looks like before the world convinced us to doubt ourselves. Today's conversation isn't about pretending life is easy, because it isn't. It's about remembering that challenges don't always get the final word, but hope does. So let's start with something light. Before we get into these big questions, tell everyone a little bit about yourself.
Rico, I'm a creator in many different fields of art.
And you love fashion, don't you?
Just life. You get to be taught so much, right? One thing I like to say is you can't learn logic or critical thinking or common sense without being through something, If you've never been through a hardship, you can't speak about hardships, things of that nature. And I think that's going to be one of the biggest vocal points of this episode.
Thank you, son. So let's get into it. What's something you've learned about life that surprises you?
One thing I learned about life that surprises me is how much good there can be, in life. I think a lot of times we like to get stuck on the temporary, right? If money is not where we want it to be, that can affect us emotionally, mentally. But everything, and once you realize this, everything is temporary. So all the ups, all the downs, everything is temporary, and that's what allows me to move on from certain things, certain battles, certain hardships, the good stuff that happens in my life. That's what allows me to move through it with less emotional stuff affecting me.
And how do you manage your emotions so it doesn't affect you?
I think one thing you got to do, one thing you have to put inside of your everyday life is just clearing your mental. So one thing I like to do to stay emotionally on the road is, let's say I'm just at a state where I'm watching something, what I like watching, stuff that boosts knowledge. So let's say I'm watching something like that, and I get a phone call, and I'm not in the mood to answer, I'm enjoying my peace. I think what a lot of people have to get comfortable with is saying no and doing no. So if you don't feel like being on the phone, don't be on the phone. Put yourself first. Phone calls aren't going to go anywhere. Relationships aren't going to go anywhere. You know what I mean? And that's just one of the things I like to do to go through the day and make sure I'm emotionally where I want to be at. But another thing is obviously prayer. Knowing you have God and Christ on your side, I think that makes a lot of things easier.
So that's something that surprises you about you.
Yeah, resilience, faith, knowing that I can believe in something bigger than myself, you know what I mean?
Yeah, so thank you for sharing that perspective. When you think about your future, what excites you the most?
Just getting there. When I get to the point in my future where I'm completing what I want to complete, that's one of the biggest things I love feeling. is completeness. So like whether I'm working on music and I submit my album, first off, pushing myself to do something outside of my comfort zone. A lot of people need to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. So when I'm making music, I'm not gonna make an album that sounds the same 3 times in a row. I wanna push myself. Let me change the vocal on this. Let me add this. Let me do this. Because that's what makes it fun. And then the moment where I complete it, it's like a weight being lifted off my shoulders, and I just get to enjoy the moment right there. And then my mind is already on to the next thing. So when it comes to the future, one thing I can't wait for is just going through stuff that makes me uncomfortable, getting comfortable with it, and then completing what I need to get done and moving to the next level, upgrading every step of life.
Okay, that's a good answer, which segues us into the next question. What does strength mean to you now?
What strength means to me now is knowing that you can, you know? Like, one thing I love to say is instead of one day, day one, right? And what that means is knowing that if each day you can just incorporate one thing, let's say you're just having a time in your life you don't feel like doing anything. If there's one day you can add something that can get you out your comfort zone, right? So when it comes to strength and pushing through and just having perseverance, one thing I personally like to do is just know that I can. I never hold myself to mediocre standard. You know, it would be nice to take the easy route of stuff. Be like, oh, I only had to wash my face today. I only had to do this today. But instead, what I like to do is I like to push myself, and I can wash my face here. I can do this on top of that. I can do this on top of that. Because I know that I can. As humans, I think we limit ourselves way too much. Like, we can accomplish so much, but we're just fine with being mediocre. And I think that's where perseverance and strength come in, where you take that next step.
Okay, so you've hit a few different points about your mindset.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe you said earlier in one of the answers in the earlier questions, you said that we have to understand that situation and things are temporary.
Yeah.
So the next question would go into, and I'm sure your answer would be yes, but you could definitely elaborate. Do you think adults worry too much?
Yes, way too much. And that just goes back to what I was saying. Everything is temporary. Let's say, for example, you have $100 to your name, right? You're trying to survive off that 100 until the next week. But see, that 100 can affect you mentally, emotionally, right? What you have to start realizing is that it's temporary. That money will be doubled. It can be doubled at any time in your life. Just how it can go away at any time in your life. Even relationships with people. If you have a best friend, they can be your best friend one day, you can lose them the next day. Even with other relationships, you can have a boyfriend this day, have them gone the next day. Everything in the material world is temporary, right? So once you realize that, you stop clinging on to stuff as much. So that's where you get rid of having pride and stuff, having greed and stuff, having lust, things of that nature. You just eliminate that out your system once you know that everything, no matter good or bad, is temporary. So yes, adults do worry too much, way too much.
Okay, so this leads me into a question about your generation. Mm-hmm. If another young person was going through a difficult season, what would you want them to know?
Well, one thing I want them to know, especially as me being a boy, right? Me being a man, it's okay to be vulnerable, right? In situations of, let's say, mental hardship or depression or whatever, it's okay to be vulnerable, right? Not saying you can let anybody into your space at those times. I'd actually rather you not do that. But it's okay to be vulnerable. Just sit with your thoughts, sit what's at hand, and just really indulge yourself in those emotions. Because when you let them out, you no longer have the weight on you. You know what I mean? So also know that with that, that's temporary. Like I said, you can be through a moment of emotional distress for so long, it can feel like, but you know, and I hope you know, you have the resilience to get out of that, right? But the main thing though is just be vulnerable. Let the emotions out. Say how you feel. You don't have to say it to anybody, but say it to yourself. You know what I mean? Because those are the moments you need to grow.
Thank you for that. So, I have two-part question. When do you feel the happiest, and what makes you the happiest?
So, one thing that makes me happy, that I love to see, is just genuine. Like, and when I mean genuine, I mean like genuine talks like the one we're having right now. You know, for me, another thing that makes me happy is just gaining knowledge. So I'll watch like maybe some stuff about space or politics or psychological stuff or anything that just helps boost my knowledge. And then just circling back on the word genuine, just good deeds, right? I love seeing humans have good connections with each other, uplifting each other, because I don't think we see that enough, right? Especially now, we're in a time where, you know, humans have been more free than ever in terms of like pride, things of that nature, but those same people get judged the most. I think if we start treating people like humans as they are, instead of objects or labels, we'll just have a better world that way. And I love seeing that. I love seeing a brother help another brother, or, you know, things of that nature. So that's a few things that make me happy.
It's beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah.
So, the last question is, what's something I've taught you without even realizing it?
That God does talk to you. I remember I had came up to in the living room, and I was like, I be praying, but I just don't hear God. Like, even as I was a kid, I can remember this memory of when I was in like my grandma's backyard, and I was looking at the sky thinking like God would talk to me. Talk to me through like the winds or something. I just never heard him. And then you said he does talk to you. So then I remember I prayed one time. I was like, give me guidance. And I came back to you because you remember I was telling you I only wanted to stay in Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just had this whole new vision of, I want to move here. I want to move across the country. I want to do this in fashion. I want to go to this college, things of that nature. And that was God talking through me right there. So I think that's one of the biggest things that led me into this journey of faith. And that's the best thing that could happen to me. Faith is really the best thing that can happen to you.
Amen.
Amen.
I'm glad I taught you that.
Yeah.
Is there anything you would like to add before we end this?
I think the biggest thing I want to say is, once you know yourself, you'll realize that nobody knows you. And what I mean by that is, once you really figure out who you are, all the external validation that a lot of humans want, or all the comments being made on you, it has no weight because you know who you are. And I mean really know who you are. Go ahead, sit, no music, just silence with your thoughts, and ask yourself the hard questions, not the easy questions. For example, an easy question would be, okay, do I feel hurt when somebody says this about me? Yeah. But the hard question is, what are you going to do to change that? And once you start talking to yourself and thinking to yourself about that, that's how you grow as a person. That's how you grow in character. That's how you start getting to know yourself. And like I said, once you know yourself, you realize nobody around you knows you. So anything they can or can't say or won't say has no weight. It really doesn't. And especially with external validation, like in my own journey, I remember for my birthday, I was trying to get a B&B. I was trying to get a black truck. I wanted a nice outfit, all for other people. I thought I was doing it for myself at the time, but it was all for other people. But when you look back at it, you realize that you're living for others. And the biggest part about living for others is what happens when the crowd is not there, right? How are you going to feel that? So my biggest thing I want to leave here is just know yourself. Know yourself. It's this Greek term, it says, gnathai sutin. That means know thyself. So know yourself.
That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. So it's been a pleasure having my son here. And one of the greatest gifts of being a parent is realizing your children are becoming their own people. Watching my son reminds me that resilience isn't always loud. Sometimes resilience looks like laughing again, dreaming again, trying again. Believing tomorrow can still be beautiful. As a parent, we naturally want to protect our children from pain. But I've learned something. We can't always protect them from life's challenges. What we can do is remind them that challenges don't get to decide who they become. And honestly, sometimes our children end up reminding us of that too. So if you're listening today and you're carrying something heavy, I hope this conversation reminded you that your story isn't finished. Maybe today is simply one chapter, not the whole book. So I want to leave you with 2 questions. What challenge has made you stronger than you realized? And what dreams are you holding on to? Don't let go of it. The future has a way of surprising us. So before we go, I want to thank my son for sharing a little piece of his heart with us all today, and to everyone listening. Thank you for spending time with us. Remember, you are not behind. You are not too late. You are simply becoming. Now wrap yourself up in softness, love on yourself, stand in your light. Until next time, that's Muse Energy.